Hi, welcome to the Writing Biz. This is where we take care of the business of writing. In this episode, we're going to discuss things that you need to know about how to start your writing business. I have some terrific guests here, and I believe also that Charlotte Pierce will be joining us in a little while. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We have a lot to go over, so I'm going to let them do a quick introduction, and then we'll move on. So I'll go ahead and start with you, Helen. If you'll tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Helen Sedgwick. I'm an attorney out here in California. I self-published a novel, Coyote Wins, about a year and a half ago. And when I published that, I realized there was no legal handbook for self-publishers. So I took care of it. And I published, I don't know whether you can see this here, but it's a self-publisher's legal handbook. Came out about 3 weeks ago. Covers everything from setting up your business to saving on taxes to avoiding infringement and defamation claims.
And it's a great book. It is a great book. It has so much information. I was surprised at how much information was in there. And not even that, there was a lot of things that I had never even considered before. So it was a learning experience. It's a great book. Rivka, let's hear a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Laura.
No problem.
My name is Rivka Kawano. I'm almost certain I'm the only Rivka Kawano on the planet, so if you search for me, you will find me everywhere. I do social media marketing, and I help authors learn how to master their marketing. I'm owner of Author Sensei. I'm a speaker and an author myself. My book is called What to Post. It's coming out this August, and it's all about creating effective social media content every day without spending all day doing it. So anything and everything to do with reading and literacy and books and authors and social media is what I love to do all day.
Awesome. I wanted to go ahead and do a really short presentation of just some questions that I think will kind of guide us. So I'm going to do a screen share of that real quick. And I thought I was going to do a screen share of that real quick. Hold on one second. Now I'll go back. Oh, there we are. This is not actually how this presentation was supposed to go. It's supposed to be in the presentation format for Evernote, but it wasn't cooperating. Make this a little smaller. The first question is who? Who are you? Who are you trying to reach? These are all things that you really need to sit down and seriously consider when you're planning out your business. Most successful business require a lot of planning, and the first thing you need to do is really think about how you're going to get done what you need to get done. The next question is what? What is your niche? What makes you unique? What type of business are you planning? What kind of vision do you have for your business? What are you willing to put into it? How far do you want to go with your business? Also, when? Establish your goals. Create a timeline for getting your project done. A timeline is really, really helpful to help you plan out each individual portion of a project to make sure things get done in a timely fashion, especially if you're working with a team of people. It's really helpful. Where will you do business and where will you market? Marketing, we all know, is a big issue. You need to decide where you want to market, what kind of effort you want to put into marketing, and how you want to get news out about your project. And why. Why are you starting a business? What do you think that you can bring to the table that people need to read about or hear about? Why are you choosing to do that? And last but not least, but really important, be patient. Take your time to develop your ideas, learn what you need to before jumping in, build a team of qualified, creative people to help you, and do it right if you do it right the first time, you'll save yourself time, money, and heartache. We all know that's true. I want to start with Rivka, and as an author coach, how would you suggest that a writer figures out who they are, who their audience is, how they're going to tailor their message, what their niche is, and what kind of focus they're going to bring to their business?
That's a great question, and I think there's a few different factors that play into that. One thing to think about is what type of writing you're doing, because obviously if you're writing young adult fiction, for example, you're going to have a much clearer idea of who you're writing for, or if you're writing romance novels or certain types of fiction, it's very obvious who your target market is. Some things it's not as obvious. If you're a freelance writer or a technical writer or doing maybe copywriting for websites, it might be a little bit trickier to figure out who you're trying to reach and exactly where they are. So some good things to start with would be, if you have any current clients or current readers, think about those people. Which of those clients and or readers do you connect with? And do you want to serve? Because that's a huge piece of the puzzle. You know, a lot of times we get this starving artist mentality where we feel like we have to work with everybody, but those people that you connect with, those projects you enjoy, that you perform the best on, who are those people? Where do they hang out? Where can you find other people like them? And just start asking questions and start looking for those kinds of opportunities by building your network and building your audience and talking to people.
Yeah, most definitely. Sally Sue Ember, who's in the audience, said that she didn't know that you were the author sensei, Rivka. She says she loves your posts.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I am the author sensei, Rivka.
Well, she's got good taste. Helen, I wanted to ask you that once a writer has an idea of what they want to do, what would you suggest they take as the first steps? I mean, what are the first things they need to look at once they know, okay, let's just say publishing a book. Let's just narrow it down a little bit. I want to go ahead and publish a book. I'm thinking about self-publishing. What should I do now?
Well, if you're thinking of self-publishing, and it's for more than just family and friends, you're really thinking about this being a business, you're looking for a market, you're going to sell it, then from the start, treat it like a business. The big reason to do that is if you treat your enterprise as a business, so will the IRS, and you will end up saving some tax money. And I can walk you through some of that process of how to set up your writing venture as a business so that you can so that in those early years where your expenses may exceed your income, you'll be able to deduct those expenses from your day job income. Do you want me to go into more detail now?
I think we might have lost our host.
I think we have lost one. So I will just
We'll just have to take over, Helen.
Okay. So this is maybe too much information to get all at once, but if you go to my website, which is helensedwick.com, if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get a handout explaining some of the nuts and bolts process of setting up your business so it looks like a business to the IRS and to you. Or if you email me through the contact page on my website, I'd be glad to send you this handout, which I prepared on the mechanics of launching your business.
Yeah, and if you want to put your web address into the comment feed, that would be really helpful. Make it easy for people to find you. And it is a really good. It really, we talked about it yesterday, and I read it over. It's very good. Yeah.
Blow the whole thing up. So it's Helen. The name there, helensedwick.com. You'll find me. Once you start a business, most likely it's not going to be a corporation or a limited liability company when you get started. It will be a sole proprietorship, which you form merely by going into business. If it's two people, it's a partnership. I do recommend certain steps that are important for setting up your business. One is that you can get an employer identification number from the IRS. This is like the Social Security number for your business. And you're going to use this every time you have to register with CreateSpace or any other vendor. You're going to have a separate Social Security number called an EIN for your business, and this will start you on the path of treating your business as separate from your personal life. You want me to go on from here?
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's that's the little things that a lot of people don't think of. I mean, a lot of times you're given the option, let's say with PayPal, to use your social security number instead of an EIN number. But an EIN number is just so much more identifiable as being a business entity that it saves a lot of, I think, confusion in the long run.
If you get your EIN, you can get it even if you're a sole proprietorship, because if you're not a corporation, you can get one. And that way you don't have to give PayPal, CreateSpace, Ingram Spark, anybody, personal social security number. You have that additional protection.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
You're going to get one. Make sure you go directly to the IRS site, the irs.gov. There are scam sites out there that look like the IRS site that ask for your social security number, your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, and they're scams. So make sure you go to the IRS site.
Good advice. Good advice. I noticed in your book you give a lot of advice like that on how to avoid falling into a scam situation, or making sure that you protect yourself from those who may not have your intentions at heart. I'm sitting here getting darker and darker, and I can't figure out how to turn the light on. I know. I'm at a friend's house, so I don't know where anything is. What else I want to ask you? I wanted to ask you, did you, when I stopped to go try to find the light, did you talk about finding the space for your business, or creating a space so that you can use that towards your taxes? Because we all know a lot of us work out of our homes.
You work out of your home. There are some technical rules to meet, but it is helpful if you designate a corner of a room, preferably a whole room, that is primarily used for your business venture. The IRS rarely checks on this, but in case they do, you want to have a separate space.
Sure.
Then you can take that if that space happens to be 5% of your house, you can then take 5% of the cost of keeping your house going, your mortgage, your property taxes, your homeowner's insurance, etc., or if you're renting, your rent, and you can take 5% of that as a business expense and deduct it against your other income.
Okay. I know that the government's having a real hard time defining particularly freelancing, because so many people are working, for themselves now, and hopefully they get a better handle on that in the next few years. It'll make the situation a lot easier for us.
The important thing is that you are starting a business. Give yourself that legitimacy. You're starting a business, so you're entitled to take these deductions. But it's up to you to keep the proper paperwork, to keep records, to be able to demonstrate to the IRS that you are running a business. And it's a mindset that writers have to get into from the start. And part of it is they don't give themselves permission. They think, I'm an artist, I don't do paperwork. Well, if you're going to be in business as an artist, you need to do paperwork. Get a file box, put your files in there, and you may never need them for the IRS, but in case you do, you'll be ready.
Yep, Sally Sue's been kind enough. She's put up links for us for the IRS and also for your website, Helen.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, she's something else. Another thing, once you have that you're going to start the business, you have an idea of what your business wants to be, you really do need to spend a lot of time planning out your business, because that will help you in every other step of the way. It helps you when you're trying to figure out the timelines, what kind of projects need to be done by when. If you need to hire people to do certain things for you, because I strongly suggest that you do hire people if you're trying to attempt something you're not really knowledgeable in, or you're trying to rush because you don't have time, because all that will show up in the end product. But if you take the time to really structure your business in the beginning and make sure that you understand what your product is and look at the markets that you're going to get your product out to. I know that it's very broad when somebody says, well, I'm going to use social media for my marketing. That's not an answer. That's more of a question, really, because Rivka's laughing. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. What social media? Are you knowledgeable in doing social media, or are you just posting up pictures of your cat to Facebook? Because that is not going to sell your book. You need to be really clear on what your message is. So one thing I tell people in the very beginning when they ask me about their marketing is clean up your social media. If your brand is you, if that's who your brand is, and all you've been posting for the last 5 years is pictures of your cat and your grandkids and food that you eat, you need to decide, do I want to do my marketing in that account even though I already have this base, or do I even want to start over? Because honestly, sometimes it's better to start over depending on what kind of content you have in there. And then the other thing I run into, and Rivka's going to know this one too, and I'm sure Helen is, even when people say, okay, well, I'll use the 80-20 formula. I'll post 80% of other people's stuff and 20% of mine. But they don't have a clear idea what that 80% is. So
yeah,
they're posting.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in on that real quick, if you don't mind, Laura, because I think obviously I care so much about content. It's what my entire book is creating content. And that 80-20, lots of people throw that out there now. It's been said enough that people have an idea, but it's not really 80% of other people's stuff and 20% of your stuff. Your voice needs to be
Absolutely
everything you're posting. Your underlying purpose and marketing message needs to be in everything you're posting. And when we're talking about 20%, we're just talking about promotion, like actually where you're doing an ask, right? Where you're trying to say, buy my book, review my book, which, by the way, I would not really recommend anyone ever use the phrase, go buy my book. On social media, anywhere, there are much more elegant ways to say that same thing that people will really attach to. But part of that 80% is just comments, thoughts, tip of the day, for whatever your particular industry or niche is. And you can do things like that no matter what you're writing. So even if you're a romance writer, you can put, a pickup line of the day, and it can be serious or it could just be humorous. And it's a way to connect with your audience and direct the conversation towards things that are going to make people think about your writing and or your book, want to read your writing and or book, want to work with you, want to hire you, because you want to be present in their thoughts when they have a need for a book or a writer.
I agree that you're putting your personality, your credibility, your brand out there, and your message needs to revolve around and supporting that image or brand. So I try the 80-20, finding 80% of other people's work or retweets. I found that it's easier to find interesting articles to curate and post those. No one's may have looked at them, or very few people have looked at them, as opposed to merely retweeting or liking something that somebody else has posted. So you sometimes have to search a little deeper to find the right content to fill that 80%.
Yeah. Well, and even honestly, when I'm factoring that 80-20, I don't even count retweets. Because to me, a retweet, a like, a comment, that's not really content, that's engagement, would be the argument I would make. So we need to be doing all of that on top of our content. So a couple tools for people who are like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find stuff? Feedly is great, feed.ly. You can find some of the top, best websites and blogs that you follow and collect them in one place, so you can easily look through a whole bunch of articles at one time and find ones that are really good. Canva.com, Canva.com is fantastic for creating micro content that are images. So take a quote or an idea, something that otherwise would be just, run of the mill, and throw it onto a graphic. Very, very quick and easy, and most importantly, free. Sway.co, swayy.co is another one that you can set up your preferences and your field, what you're looking for, and it'll give you all kinds of ideas. Clout.com, also Clout with a K, will figure out what you tweet about or write about on social media most frequently and give you suggestions for other posts you probably haven't seen yet. So there are so many tools out there now to help us curate, and then you just got to bring your magic touch to the puzzle. You have to bring your thoughts and make a comment or ask a question. What do you think about this article? Or I agree with this, or hey, this was a really cool list post and number 7 is my favorite. All of those kinds of things are really important when you're creating content and curating content. And I think a lot of people, especially as writers, you're back! Especially as writers, content creation is critical because it's how you're displaying your craft every day. You're giving people an idea of your style, your authority, and your intellect.
Yeah, what I was going to say before the computer shut down on me is that you have to be thoughtful about what you're posting. Not only to yourself, but let's say if I took an article, one of my favorite bloggers is Mike Alton. So if I took an article of his and I used it as part of my content, I need to be thoughtful about what I'm, not only add something more of value by taking it a little bit further, but also be very thoughtful that this is his piece of work that I'm commenting on. You know what I mean? You have to have, the way I do things is you have to have a very clear vision of what your purpose is when you sit down to write something, because it really makes a difference in how people connect with what you're writing. And if you're developing posts, if you're just randomly developing posts because you want to sell your book, you're not adding value to anybody's life, and they're going to turn you off. So take things. There's several people we all know that create accounts for characters, and when that's done right, that's very interesting. We also know there's a friend of mine that she's going to do a blog post for the community on this. She writes romance books back in the Roman days. So she does these wonderful posts on the way life was then, different things that we probably would never know if she hadn't told us, and particularly how women fit into the picture. That's a great way to gain some traction for your product, whether it's a book or anything else. Write about the surrounding part of it, not just I want somebody to buy my book. But another thing, and Rivka, I don't know if you've done this. I meant to ask you the other day and I didn't. But a lot of people are using a crowdfunding platform, and when you're using that with your social media, make sure that you're giving more than you're getting. Try to be very entertaining and make sure that the people that are interested in your book or whatever your product is get something of value out of that. Be really generous, and people will appreciate that from you.
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought up crowdfunding because Helen, actually, this is a question that I've had a couple of times that I don't have a great answer to. What kind of impact? I don't think a lot of people think about taxes or the IRS or anything like that when they're doing crowdfunding. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I can. There are 3 issues with crowdfunding. One, and a lot of it's terminology, but with the law, often what you call something has a bigger impact than what it is. So first thing, you don't call it an investment, because an investment is like a stock or a bond. It's highly regulated. And you don't call it a donation. Many people think donations are tax deductible, and most people doing crowdfunding are not tax deductible, non-exempt, and they're not non-profit entities. So what you call it is a contribution, and if you are doing it in pursuit of a business activity, such as help me publish my book, hire editors, etc., and you want to make a profit out of that, then it is income, and it's taxable income, as opposed to doing it as it is almost always taxable income unless you have a nonprofit behind the organization. If you're taking that money in at the same time you're spending money on editors, cover designers, marketing expenses, then that income is probably going to be offset by expenses. But plan it out so that your income and your expenses happen in the same calendar year. So that's the trick on crowdfunding. And it's a surprise to some people, probably an unpleasant surprise.
Well, especially if you're thinking about doing a campaign at the end of the year.
Yeah. Different crowdfunding sites set it up differently on the timing. Some you don't get any money until you reach a certain target. Some you get it along the way. It will take, it sounds complicated, but really if someone takes 10 or 15 minutes and thinks about the timing, they'll probably save themselves some tax money. That's usually before then, and you just, if you've kept receipts, you'll be able to deduct them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's very good advice. The other thing, just on the marketing thing, I wanted to point out is really think about how you're going to do it. Limit your tools and limit your platforms. It's better to do a couple really well than do 5 or 6 poorly. So I've found that myself, and I know that a lot of people find that it's unless you have all day to devote to it, and I think you want to write instead of play around on social media, it's better to do that. And there's some that you're going to get more traction from. You know, like Facebook is people you know, so there is a certain amount of value there. But really, to get any kind of numbers, you want to connect with people you don't know or people you want to know. So keep that in mind. What else were we going to talk about? I guess Charlotte couldn't make it, but that's okay. She's having a good time.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit more about business setup?
Oh, that's what it was.
You know, you talked about
yes, absolutely.
Knowing who your target. What Rivka, you were talking a lot about is knowing who your market is, and certainly, since none of us have bottomless pit of money or time, you want to figure out who will buy your book, how do you reach those people, and how do you do it without spending more money than you need to spend or more time than you need to spend. Exactly. And then once you, that I don't spend as much time on in my book. I mention it as being an important thing to keep your sanity, but I want to touch on a couple other business setup points. Mm-hmm. Once people have decided they're going into business, and I talked about getting an employer ID number, particularly if you are going to be self-publishing a book and you're going to be taking that book to conferences and book festivals and do readings and sell that book, you are going to, this always comes as a nasty surprise, you're going to have to start collecting sales tax and paying sales tax to the state. So after you have your employer ID number from the IRS, another number that you need is you need to contact your state's sales tax authority and get what's called a resale number, sometimes called a seller certificate. And you're going to have, and they'll probably have plenty of printouts in all kinds of languages explaining to you the process of collecting and paying sales tax. Sales tax, what do they say? Taxes and death, you can't avoid them. That's one of those ones. That sales tax is something you're going to have to worry about. Unless if you're wildly successful, then it really won't matter. You'll be making enough money from the sale of the book that the time you spend dealing with sales tax is not going to really have a big impact on you. You may also need a business license depending on where you live. Many towns and cities require a business license. If you're outside of a town or a city in a rural area, you may not. And unfortunately, the rules are very specific to every single town. So if you don't have employees, you may not need a business license. If you have income below a certain level, you may not. Then what I recommend people do is they simply do an internet search that says the name of their city and business license, and they'll probably find a site that will tell them whether they need a business license and how to go about doing it not a costly endeavor. Usually the fees are like $20, $30, $40 a year, maybe 5 years. So again, these are all steps that make your business look much more legitimate to the IRS. And ultimately, the more you do that, the more you'll be able to deduct your expenses.
I have a question. What if you're giving away books as a promotion or even a donation?
If you're giving it as a donation, there's no sales tax in most states, at least especially here in California. If you're giving away review copies or you're giving away copies, if you paid sales tax on those when you bought them from your printer, then you don't have to collect sales tax.
Okay.
If you didn't pay sales tax when you bought them from your printer, such as CreateSpace, then you have to pay sales tax on the books that you use and give to somebody else.
Yeah, that's very good information.
These are the kind of details that I do outline in my book.
Right.
No one's going to remember these off the top of their head except a lawyer who has to deal with these. But these are the kind of details that unfortunately come with running a business that you just have to become comfortable with so they don't take up that much time.
Yeah, I think that if you're seeing any type of success with the project that you're doing, you really should maybe sit down with an accountant and make sure you have all your ducks in the row and that you are satisfying, the tax laws and everything that you need to, because it sounds like it could get pretty complicated the more successful you became.
Well, the longer you put it off, the harder it is to dig out, because it's a lot of details along the way. So it's better if you're giving away review copies on your computer or on a pad of paper, just keep track of who you sent copies to. And so that you can then sit down and figure out where you owe sales tax and where you don't.
Okay.
And there are a few people who live in states that don't collect sales tax, and they're very lucky.
Yeah, well, that's not. I'm in Florida, so that's not true.
Yeah.
Pamela Barway was bringing up how so many of the things that she uses during her work, she takes as a deduction. And even her son's preschool when he was young, so it allowed her time to work. And I think, too, that, it doesn't hurt. I know a lot of people like to do their own taxes, but it's worth a few dollars. I found myself, especially as a self-employed person, to have somebody else do my taxes so they can pick up on all those deductions that maybe I missed. Buying a new laptop and doing the depreciation and all that. I mean, it's important to have professionals in your life that can handle things that you either don't want to take the time to learn or just don't have the education to learn or to understand.
They pay for themselves. Usually by the time they find savings that you would never have known about, they've paid for themselves.
Exactly. Yep. Just like good design. You don't want to put out a book that has a great story and a crappy cover that nobody's going to buy the book. It's the same thing. Pay for the things that are going to move you forward. What was this? Sheila Hensley. She says she never thought of needing a business license for writing a book, but it does make sense if you plan to sell it. Interesting thoughts. So it sounds like she's getting something out of this session and open up a little bit of a different mindset.
Yeah, the transition is writing a book is not a business. Selling a book is a business. Mm-hmm. And that's a transition that a writer needs to make. A freelance writer, they know they're in business. They're selling a service. But a writer who's been working on a novel has to transition their self-image from writer to writer, marketer, publisher.
Yeah, and another thing is, bloggers, too, when they move out of just blogging into actual monetization of their site, which is a whole other show. But when they move into the monetization, they really need to take a close look at what the legal requirements are and how they should be reporting their income and whatever taxes are need to be paid at that time. I am not real clear about if you sell like white papers through your website. How do you handle something like that? That's I don't know if you want to address that, but that's
the issue is when you're delivering something electronically. Mm-hmm. Does sales tax apply? And it's different. It changes with each state. Some states do tax electronic deliveries. Most states do not.
So who figures that out?
That's why you go. That's why you go to an accountant in your state.
Yeah, yeah. See, that would be different. I mean, unless you're going to go through every customer and find out where they live and do it. I don't know. I guess
it would only count for deliveries you did electronically in your own state, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
I may be wrong on that
I
one.
understand. I had it backwards.
So if you're getting into the business of, well, how? Yeah, it's a good question. In Florida, I don't know what the rule is.
See, this is why I like to surround myself with smart people so that I can ask questions and then just sit there and listen. That's terrible. Carmen Rojas says she's loving the show. She's tweeting and posting as she listens. And she's going to be saving this video for that magical day when she finally gets herself together enough to write a book, which I don't think is too far in the future. And then we talked about the free copies and a good accountant. We talked about that. And funny enough, Sheila was just going to ask that question about the ebooks and electronic transfer. So yeah, I think that's some interesting information there.
I have a question for Rivka. You know, when I look at social media, and having not been a person that grew up with social media, at first it's overwhelming how much information there is. And do you have recommendations on when someone's getting started on social media, maybe for different kinds of books? What are the baby steps? What are some of the first baby steps one should take?
Yeah, so baby step number one is to figure out which social media platforms you should even be on. I think Laura's point is exactly right. You should not try to be on every social media platform, and you should stop listening to anybody that tells you you should be on every social media platform, because it means they're not experienced. Not only because of the obvious, even being on the big five would be a challenge, but in reality, there are hundreds of social media platforms. So somebody who's saying have a presence everywhere doesn't even know that fact, which makes me question. I mean, there are literally social media platforms specifically for people who have mustaches. There are social media platforms for people specifically who are setting up profiles for their cats. And that's all it is people's profiles of cats. So there's a social media platform for everything just about these days. So that's number one, is where should you even be? And to figure that out, you have to know two things. Number one, who is your target audience? Like, who are you trying to reach? And then number two, a little bit about the demographics of who's on which platform, and kind of what types of content, you know, like if you're writing erotica, LinkedIn is not really going to be the place for you to market, because it's not that.
Make it more interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's one word for it. So that would be baby step number one. Baby step number two is make sure you are very clear on the connection between what you're doing on social media and your end game. So your website, your mailing list. How are you getting people from point A to point B? Because this is all about relationship building. Nobody, I think I gave this example to Laura, nobody says, I want to get married, and then goes to a bunch of different bars and says hello to a bunch of people and never tries to get a phone number, right? We understand that there's this process in relationship building that starts with the hello and, you know, ends with whatever the end of that relationship is, whether it's, you know, being friends or being married or buying your book or whatever. And social media is no different, and business is no different. There's a process that you have to walk through that starts with the hello and moves on from there. And if you don't know how you're going to move past the hello, you're never going to get the dates. You're never going to get to the proposal point where you can actually pitch your book or your writing. So that would be baby step number two. And then baby step number three is just pick a platform based on all of that and start doing it. Start engaging. Start conversing with people, start creating that great content, but then also, there's kind of like 3 pieces to the puzzle of social media success. Number 1 is a good foundation, number 2 is good content, and number 3 is good engagement. And if you're missing any one of those 3 pieces of the puzzle, you're not going to find very much success. You can be posting the best content in the world, and if you're doing it on the wrong platform and aren't engaging with people after the fact, you're not going to get anywhere. You can be have the greatest website set up with the best lead capture ever, and if you're not posting good content, or it's got to all be working together. So I hope that answers your question at least a little bit.
Also, to speak to that, and you may have already said this, Rivka, and I want to preface it by saying that you brought it up yesterday, is the time to start your platform is when you decide to write your book, not afterwards.
Yep.
And the other thing on that same note is that to take, in the very beginning, sit back and really think about what your commitment is to this project. Because writing a book and publishing a book can take over your whole life. Make sure that you're willing to go the distance with it. You don't want to go halfway and run out of funds or run out of your time or whatever. You really want to make sure that you're committed to that process. If maybe it's better if you have the money to hire people to do a lot of it for you, or maybe it's better to just take your time step by step and build it up into what you want it to be before you launch. Don't rush a launch because you think that you've taken too much time or you need the money. That's just it's a recipe for disaster. It truly is. So make sure that you're committed to going forward with it, because a lot of people have found that once they get that first book out there, and especially if it's good, immediately, if not before they even finish writing the first one, people want to know about that second book. So make sure that you're really committed to the process before you get involved.
And that is a great problem to have, for sure. But yeah,
right? Yeah, no kidding.
Definitely start building your platform and building those relationships before you have the book out. And this is one thing we were talking about too in our conversation earlier this week, Laura, is I think a big part of that problem is people confuse marketing with sales. So they think to themselves, I don't have anything to sell, so why would I be marketing? Where marketing is really just a fancy term for building relationships with people and exchanging value in ideas and services and products and money and all kinds of stuff. So, the best time to build relationships is when you don't have something that you're trying to sell. You're not in that desperation mode.
Right.
When they can just get to know who you are, what your position is, what you have to say. They can, that know, like, and trust factor that you hear about all the time. So important and so critical. And real relationships are what's going to catapult your business and your book forward in the biggest ways.
Absolutely.
And there are no shortcuts to
Absolutely.
genuine, real quality relationships.
I mean, and that goes from the team you're trying to build to find people that can help you, and then also to get the energy up about whatever your project is. There's people that if they believe in what you're doing will step forward and speak for you. There's so many levels to that. But that relationship building is so organic, and if it's done right and you're sincere in your intentions, it is extremely powerful. I've seen it in my business. I see it in my friends' businesses. In the very beginning, you may think, "Oh yeah, whatever," but no, it really is. It really helps. I just want to get to a couple of comments. Sally said, well, Rivka, some people take a linear, slow approach to relationships, and some go out back and get it on.
And if you're wearing that right outfit in the right place at the right time,
That's right.
And that is part of the foundation piece too. Having your website, having your email list set up so that you can take advantage of those moments. If people are ready for you, you better be ready for them.
That was a great segue. You go, girl. She also said it's fine to recommend that writers build their platform first, start their business first, do everything before writing and publishing. But reality is not usually that way. Most people get inspired and start writing first, get hired, publish as they are inspired, then try to figure out the rest. That's just how it is. So what to do with real writers who are not pre-publication and need to do these things midstream? And my very first suggestion in that case is hire somebody who knows what they're doing, because they will push you further faster than you will ever be able to do on your own, because they're going to have the time and the commitment to do it. They're going to know all the shortcuts and have the tools ready, willing, and able to just take you to where you need to go. If you try a lot of social media, if you're doing it for yourself, there's a learning process, and it takes quite a while to get an understanding of how things work, how best to put things. I mean, it's from how to put your pictures up, how to write a good bio, your profile pictures is what I meant, how to construct your posts for the different types of media. There's a lot of things you need to understand. So yes, I understand a lot of people do that, but when you're in that position, really, it's worth every penny. If you don't get somebody to actually do the whole package for you, at least get somebody in there to teach you how to set up your social media accounts and what tools to use, so then you can take over and do it yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely, and I would also say, yes, that is where most people are, because they don't even think about marketing until they're at that point. I always say that because a lot of people know that they want to write a book someday, so I'm always throwing that out there to save them that trouble. But the other thing that I would say is, just because you do have your book ready to sell, and just because you're at that point in your process, respect the point that your audience is in that process of relationship building. So just because you're at the point where you're ready to sell doesn't mean that you have that relationship with your audience that allows you to just go for full force sales mode. You still have to build relationship. You still have to create content.
I'm going to just jump in here one moment. Is that what I want to assure people is that they shouldn't be afraid of the business aspect of selling their book. All this sounds overwhelming on top of starting your own business and sales tax and this, that. Don't be afraid of it. If you can write a book, if you can take a novel and structure it, or even a nonfiction book and organize it and structure it, you can handle these business aspects.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing is, watch out for shortcuts. There's a lot of people out there. Watch out for scams. There are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of these self-publishing service companies that make it sound like publishing a book is way too hard to do, and you need to hire them to do it, and they're going to charge you $5,000 to $10,000 to do it. There are no shortcuts in life. Don't be tempted to go with these companies unless you've really researched them and checked their reputation, because most of them have horrible reputations.
Yep.
So check on who you're hiring, know what you're hiring them for, and just kind of take ownership of this project of marketing your book. As I said, if you've written a book, you can manage this part of the process.
Absolutely. I think that's really fantastic. And I would add to that, even if you are hiring people to help you, that ownership piece that Helen is talking about is so important. Even traditionally published authors, you still have to take ownership of your marketing. You are still going to be involved in your business, in the structuring of it. You never want anybody that says, well, just send me your book and I'll market it for you. I can tell you right now, they're a scam, because nobody is going to be able to give it the voice or the life that you will. This is your baby. This is your passion. And you should have people on your team that are coming alongside to help and to guide and to give you advice and whatever else you need along the way. But realistic expectations are important, and like Helen said, being very clear on exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it, and what kind of results that you can expect from that. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Don't be afraid to ask for references of who are other people you've worked with. Ask questions like, what are the usual results that you see with your clients? Ask questions like, how long will this process take? What are the benchmarks along the way that I should be looking for? Don't be worried about offending somebody, or, you know, if they are a real professional and can actually do their job well, those types of questions won't scare them and won't offend them. And if they start being really aggressive back at you and saying, "Well, we know what we're doing and you don't," run.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty far away.
Just so you know, it didn't all of a sudden get completely dark here. I don't know what's going on. This isn't my computer. This isn't my house. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
You feel very mysterious.
Yeah, my internet company's hating on me. It's not just Google Plus anymore, or Google. It's the internet too. So, whatever. I wanted to bring up Sally Sue Ember said that with what money, Laura Williams, and she's right about that. So there you go, back to the development process. If you are planning on doing your own marketing, you have to plan to take the money to learn how to do it. I mean, the time to learn how to do it. Learn what tools you can use. There's a lot of good advice out there. If anybody's interested, I can recommend some names. There's some good HOAs out there. I will also say that there's some bad advice out there. So be careful about who you follow. Make sure that they really know what they're talking about. I was talking to, I believe it was Rivka and Helen the other day, about how much I hate the 5 ways to get all the traffic you ever wanted on Twitter. No, there's not 5 ways. So those type of things really hold no value. Look for people who really are interested, like Mike Alton. He handles Hootsuite. He gives, and other things too, not just Hootsuite, but he gives some great advice on Hootsuite. And I just finished his book today. There were things in there I hadn't thought of. I use Hootsuite all the time, but he brought it up to a different level where I'm just sitting there, well, yeah, that'll work. So, I mean, pay attention. But that's it. If you don't have the money, figure out how to do it yourself, but you've got to be able to put that work in. Don't expect it just to happen, because it's not. It won't. Pamela Barraway, I guess her husband's watching her son tonight for us. He was giving him a bath last week so she could be on. She said that the resources for social media marketing might be right in front of you. After a year, I became the client of my client, the ever awesome Jessica Duell, who is very awesome, and who not only helped develop my website, but also provided her with #stellar but common sense advice on social media. So there, you can gain some connections with people that can offer you some advice along the way, if you're open to it and paying attention. So that's what I would say about not having the money. But if you have the money, even if it takes you doing a little extra work somewhere else, it can help ramp things up a little faster to have a professional of any kind, whether it's a graphic designer or web designer. You know, don't have the kid next door building your website for you. You know, try to, if you have to wait to get the money to do those things, it's better to wait, because that's you. That brand is you, and you need to be really careful with it. So, ladies, I think we're going to get ready to tie it up here. This has been really, really good. I think we got a lot of answered a lot of questions and helped some people here. So it's wonderful. That's all I want to do with this show. So makes me happy. I know that we're just skimming the surface of starting your business with this show. I love this black screen. That is just great. I know we're just skimming the surface, and in later shows, you know, we'll focus down more. But I just want to open up writers thinking when they're stepping into, whether it's freelancing or self-publishing or getting serious about their blogging, into that there are little bits of things that need to be taken care of first, and that's your legal. Make sure that you are following the law. Make sure that you are making Uncle Sam happy with your taxes. Make sure that you're really putting in the work. So that's I think we've done that today. So I'm happy about that. Next week we're going to discuss you, and by that I mean you, the brand. You. It helps to really get a concrete idea of what your branding purposes are and how you want to present yourself to the world as you build a presence online and offline. It can make a big difference if you really think that through in the very beginning. Now, ladies, if you want to just tell us where we can find you and anything that you have coming up that we can look for, I'll go ahead and start again with you, Helen.
My website is helensedgwick.com. You can see my blog on the website, something about both my novel and my new book, Self-Publisher's Legal Handbook. And you can contact me through the contact page. You sign up for my newsletter. I have a nuts and bolts handout that I send out automatically, which will give you some more tips on how to set up your business.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And Rivka?
AuthorSensei.com is the best place for authors to go. We're very active on Twitter, over 40,000 followers on Twitter now, and would love to have you join the conversation there at Author Sensei. When you go to the website, you can get a series of interviews that we did with best-selling authors and a couple from me about how to start building your author platform and get reviews and all that kind of stuff. And also we do regular free webinars online as well, where we answer all types of questions about your marketing. So.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's really I can't even talk. That would be very helpful. Now, as far as I go, I am looking forward to hopefully arranging for Rivka and I to meet while she's in Florida later this month, and that's going to be our hurl, and that does not mean we stayed up too late drinking. That's hang out in real life. I'm looking forward to that. And what else do I have going on? I have the show going on. Like I said, next week we're going to talk about branding. I do the Indie Office Hours with Charlotte Pierce of Pierce Press. I'm the co-host on that. That's on Tuesdays at noon, and that's for self-publishers and authors. Next week we will be tackling, oh my goodness, we just spoke about it real quick yesterday. Oh, I don't even remember. That's awesome. Those shows are always a lot of fun. We had Jason T. Weiser on this past week and David Amerland the week before that, where we discussed metadata. That was really interesting. I also want to thank our audience. Carmen, thank you so much. And thank you for saying I don't need lights. And Sheila Hensley, Pamela Barraway, and I think there was one more. They might have moved too far down in the comment string. And Pamela was saying that her husband rocks. And he said this week he's watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off with his son so that she can have a few quiet moments to watch the show. One of my favorite movies. But I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for your comments. And thank you so much for showing that you really care about writers and being on the show, both Helen and Rivka. It's been awesome. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but that is the way things are, I guess, for me anyways. And I hope everybody has a great night. I will be turning this into a podcast, so you can look for that, and look for my blog post also tomorrow. I'll post it in the comments. Okay, everybody have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.